Not aware of any, Lisa, are we?
No.
Okay, jolly good. So we'll move on to item 4, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of July this year. I presume members have had a look at those minutes. If they are, members are happy, could I please have a proposer and seconder? Councillor Mark?
Propose, Chairs, yeah, happy to propose.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Mark Jones. Excellent, thank you. So if members are happy, could you please show by raising your hands? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any to the contrary? Any abstentions? No, I think that's a full house. So thank you very much. Those minutes have been approved. We will move on to item 5, which is matters arising. I'm not aware of any. Are there any, Lisa?
Not that I'm aware of.
No. Okay. So I'll now move on to item 6, which is the capital strategy and treasury management. Helen, are you presenting this?
Thank you, Chair. It's actually going to be David on
Okay,
this.
David.
Thank you.
Diolch, Helen.
Thank you, Alan. Chair, I don't want to go through each step of this report because there are elements of it that are quite technical and part of it is for information in terms of a commentary on the economy and so on. But I shall remind you of 2 rules. Rule 1, don't lose money, and Rule 2, refer back to Rule 1. And Mark Twain said something like that.
David, can I just pause you there, David? For the interpretation members, you will have to click on the French button to get the interpretation. I do apologise. Technical issue, but
That explains it, because I'd raised my hand because I wasn't.
I was frantically clicking around then as well. So yeah, sorry, David, if you want to carry on.
Yeah, I'll rewind a bit. I won't go through. Oh, I don't give a go on. Yeah. I
don't want to go to present every step of this report because elements of it are very technical and others are for information in terms of a commentary on the economy. But I shall refer to something that is not in the report, that is to say something Mark Twain said. He said, I'm more concerned about the return of my money than the return on my money. And Warren Buffett said something similar. Rule 1, don't lose money. Rule 2, refer back to Rule 1. And in that sense, one gives a certainty of the return of the main sum rather than the interests on investments. And here we have 2 things. Reporting back on the middle of the year in terms of investments and borrowing this year, and looking forward to the following year with a strategy for the minimum statement for 23-24. There is good news, there is no loss, and the intention is to keep the funds safe for the following year. There's an authorised limit that is in Table 8 of the report, which is in Appendix 2. And I think that's the limit, the authorised limit for borrowing, and that limit is reasonable. Both Helens have had guidance from Arlene Close on the form of this report, and the figures agree with the budget for next year. You will see that there is an increase in some things moving forward. That's inevitable, and we shall have more of that on the following item. So for the time being, I ask, as part 1 of the report says, or part 6, I ask that you just note the mid-year situation, which is not dreadful, and approve the strategy for next year, and recommend that to the authority in January to be adopted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Mark?
Yeah, joking around, David.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, due to the size we are potentially, well, not potentially, requesting from the authorities and the size of the increase, do we feel that the audit committee we sit on should have a task and finish group just to look into a bit more depth on that issue? That's just a question for open debate, Chair. Happy for you to ask members any thoughts on that. I think it'd be prudent because of the size. So I just wanted the feeling off members on that, please, Jock and vote.
I think that's maybe a question we can address in the following item. I think that we're on the Treasury Management at the moment. We'll get to the budget on the following item and get back to that suggestion. Councillor, I think that would be in order.
Yeah, Jock and vote. I understand that. I just want to get in there early, and I just think it's good for us to have that debate on that. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you, Councillor Mark. Councillor Gwynfor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to David for the report. I am a little nervous following what Councillor Mark Young said now as well. I am looking at the recommendations saying approve the strategy, the capital strategy, and if we approve this, and David can explain, I'm sure, but does that mean that we approve, that we are asking the local authorities to contribute, or is it only in the next item that comes up? There are figures that are consistent between the two reports. To tell the truth, we ought to have taken the next item first, perhaps, and then this. But you are not deciding anything this morning, and we will have a discussion on the next item. If you decide to change the rate for the local authorities, Helen will have adapted the figures in this report to go to the authorities to match that. It does underline the importance of us getting things consistent and trying to have the discussion early. We cannot leave this until the day itself, or there will be too much detailed work to do on the spot. Okay, thank you. As I say, I'm a little nervous still about how to vote on this because it will be far-reaching and could cause, well, as I say, following what Councillor Mark Young was saying, perhaps we ought to look at that.
Yeah, I would agree, Councillor Gwynfor. Councillor Marion.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also extremely nervous endorsing anything today. We've yet to get the settlement from the Welsh Government. So I can't see how we can seriously look into endorsing anything. And as far as Flintshire is concerned, and I'm sure all your authorities are the same, we have an extortionately high deficit, and I don't think that I could endorse anything higher than the average settlement for Wales from the Welsh Government. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Marion. Well, I think, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder if I might be able to provide some assurance to members of the Audit Committee in relation to this item. I think members have highlighted their concerns in respect of what they might be endorsing, but I think what it's important to reflect on is what this paper seeks to do. This paper isn't necessarily about approving a capital programme. What it's about is joining up those disparate elements, namely that the capital plan is approved as part of budget setting, and this paper is subject to that capital plan. It's about how do we finance it. if we finance it through borrowing, what is our treasury management strategy for doing that? So do we enter into fixed term loans, or do we enter into variable? Do we do short term or long term? So I think whilst all of the concerns of the members are entirely valid, I think it's important to recognise what the treasury management strategy seeks to do. It's about, subject to that plan being approved as part of budget setting, it's how do we then fund it, and what is our risk appetite in funding it through borrowing? How do we ensure that we've borrowed at the correct rates? How do we protect our investments? So where we have surplus cash, how do we manage that? So again, do we lend our surplus cash, or do we use safer deposits through banks? So not in any way diminishing the concerns raised, because they are entirely valid, but I think it's recognising that the capital strategy is very much around managing all of those disparate elements, and indeed recognising those prudential indicators, which are the limits on our borrowings. So entirely valid comments raised, but probably probably worth picking up as part of the next item.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Helen. Councillor Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just, I get the gist of what's just been said, but the recommendation, item 1, does say endorse.
Yeah.
So that's quite clear what that means to me. So I would, if we are going to, go into this, I just think we need to look at the wording as well.
Yeah. Perhaps change that to note the capital and treasury management. Yeah.
Talking about, yeah.
So would members be happy with the recommendation if recommendation 6.2 was changed to note? Would that make the members happy?
I think, Chair, if we say note in recommendation parts 2 and in the third part of the recommendation into 6, to say recommend approval of the strategy subject to discussions with local authority leaders, etc.
Okay, members, any comments on that?
Do you need a second in the proposer for that, Chair? Just so we get this.
We will do for any alterations.
Yeah. So happy with that wording.
Okay, so can we just have clarification on that? So it's to note the mid-year position of the treasury management activities for 2022-23, to note the capital treasury management and MRP strategies for 23-24, and the next one is to recommend approval by the fire and rescue authority, subject to
ongoing discussions with council leaders, I would suggest.
Okay. Councillor Marion? Can you mute, please?
Sorry. Yes, it was just clarification on that last point. Would you mind just repeating what you said, please?
To recommend approval by the fire and rescue authority, subject to, David, what was that? Subject to further
ongoing discussions with local council leaders.
Okay, so are we leaving the decision to the council leaders on this final? That's the bit I'm not sure of. You're saying recommend approval subject to discussion. So in effect, are we leaving the decision to the council leaders?
The intention was to discuss this under the following item, but I'm sure you're aware that leaders have picked this up on Friday afternoon, and that they're anxious to discuss with us ways of reducing the budget request, the levy. Yeah. So obviously we're not going to refuse that. We're going to have a discussion with them and look to any way we can reduce. That would be difficult to bring it down to what you suggested was the level of the settlements, although we don't know the level of the local government settlement yet. But no, it's not giving the decision to the council leaders. It's having a discussion with them and coming back to you and your fellow members in full authority meeting in January for the decision. But we will take cognizance of what they say, and we may amend some figures in the budget report, and some of these figures may need to be amended accordingly as well.
Right.
Would there be an issue of actually leaving 6.3 off?
Yeah. I would endorse that. Thank you. Leaving it off, I mean.
Yeah. David, what's your thoughts on that?
It's your decision, but happy for you to do that. It's as long as we can bring something back to the authority and it doesn't prevent us bringing it back. So yeah, that would be a way forward.
Okay, Councillor Austin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can I begin by apologising to the Welsh speakers?
But I'm now going to turn into the English because as I can hear the translator, so it'll be easier for me now to speak in English. So my apologies to my fellow Welsh speakers. Would it be possible, therefore, to defer this? I've also had a conversation with the leader of Conwy County Council, and yes, they feel it's imperative that the authority has discussions with the leader of the 6 North Wales authorities before any decision is made. Yeah. So I don't know if a deferral would be a suitable way forward. That's just a suggestion. Yeah. Also, may I apologise for keeping my camera off, but the connection this morning is very, very shaky.
Austin. Well, I think if we look to move the recommendations 1 as noted and recommendation 2 as noted and remove recommendation 3, I think that may be a way forward there, Austin. Councillor Marion, still got your hand up? Some more input, is it?
I'm very sorry, I didn't take it down last time. Sorry.
Okay. What do members think about just accepting recommendation 1 and 2 as both noted? Would that be a way forward? Councillor Tina?
Yeah, I think we have to bear in mind with this that the Welsh local government settlement is on Wednesday.
Yes.
So that's when we will have a lot more information. And so I think the deferral proposal is a useful one, because at least we will have enough information to at least have a grounding on that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tina. David?
Yeah, again, it's
again, Mr. Chairman, I think that the word defer came up from the leaders. I don't think that it is practical for us to postpone a decision that has been on the 16th of January. We have to make a decision on the budget at that time. And with holidays coming up, reconvening in the meantime between now and that date in January is not practical either. So I don't think that we need to defer, because I think that it's clear now what we are talking about is the budget in the next item, but you can no doubt approve this item with those 2 first parts of the recommendation. With the budget, there's no need to defer, because we are only making a recommendation to the authority today in any case. And the deferral is going to be impossible to all intents and purposes and unnecessary. You can have more discussion on the budget in the next item, but as for this, we ask you to note what you recommended, the first 2 clauses of the recommendation.
Yeah. I would agree, David. So members, I think with the recommendation 6, if we just took the first 2 items on that, that is to note the midterm position of the Treasury management activities for 22-23. And then item 2 is to endorse the capital treasury management, is to note the capital treasury management and MRP strategies. We're not actually agreeing to anything, we're just noting those. And then to remove item 3 from that, remove the recommendation. Would members be happy with that as a way forward? So we can look at the next item.
I think that makes sense, Chair. I'm happy with that approach.
Are you happy to propose that then, Councillor Mark?
I am, yes.
Okay, so we need a seconder for that, for that. Councillor Gwynfor, thank you very much. So we've got a proposer and a seconder that we note both 6.1 and 6.2, and that 6.3 is removed. If members are happy with that, could you please show by raising your hand? Okay, any to the contrary? And any abstentions? 1. Have we got numbers, Gareth?
So I made that 4 for the proposition, Chair, and 3 abstentions.
Okay.
It's carried.
All right. Thank you very much, Gareth. Then we will then move on to the next item, which is item 5, is it? Sorry. The Audit Committee has been tasked to ensure the effective scrutiny of the Treasury management strategies and policies based upon its findings and make recommendations to the Fire Authority. Don't understand why that's not in order. 5, background. Oh, well. So this is most confusing. Am I looking at the wrong item here? I do apologise.
Chair, we're on agenda item 7.
Sorry, yeah, I was looking on the wrong page then. I do apologise. Item 7 is the medium-term financial strategies 23 to 26 and the budget for 23-24. I do apologise, members. Trying to do this all on an iPad. Okay, who's taking item 7, please?
Diolch, Chair. If I can lead on this one, and David's going to come in after.
Okay.
Apologies. I think with the value of hindsight, I think what's evident this morning is that perhaps this agenda item might well have been better coming ahead of the Treasury management, but we are as we are. What this item relates to is the authority's medium-term financial plan. That covers the period the 1st of April 2023 through to the 31st of March 2026. What it also does is provides the proposed revenue and capital budgets for 2023-24. I think by way of background for members, you will recall that the approval of the budget and the medium-term financial plan are reserved matters for the full Fire and Rescue Authority. That means that they can't be delegated to officers, although we clearly have a role to play in terms of building up the budget. And therefore today, you're not being asked to approve the budget, but to note the approach and endorse that it progresses through to the full Fire Authority meeting in January 2023. The paper in the pack today builds on the budget paper that was approved by the authority at its meeting in October. And that was the budget planning paper. And that confirmed that the budget planning would be predicated on the existing service delivery models, that the priorities would include those identified by the Chief Fire Officer in her situational assessment back in September 2021. And just to confirm what those were, that was that we would focus on availability and making sure that we had that operational response across North Wales, that we would focus on the training for our operational staff, making sure that we address all of the health and safety matters, and also that we would build that corporate capacity that was so important during that COVID outbreak. Within the paper in October, the key risks were also included, and it was noted at that time that pay inflation was a significant challenge, as the pay settlements were outstanding for 2022-23, and also 23-24. In addition to that, we've noted significant inflationary pressures, supply chain difficulties, and the cost of living crisis. So we are equally facing challenges in relation to our energy costs. Members, I'm sure, will note that the challenges being faced by the authority are wholly consistent with other public sector and private sector businesses, as well as individuals, as that cost of living crisis deepens. And the paper within the agenda pack today provides both the medium-term financial plan and the budget. And this is the culmination of about 3 months of planning internally within the service by my colleagues on the service leadership team. I have there's quite a lot of detail within the report, but I have a short presentation I'm happy to share with members. So you're going to have to bear with me whilst I share my screen. Share screen, apologies. If somebody could just confirm when they can see it.
We can indeed. Thank you, Helen.
Yeah, lovely. And there we go. Thank you. So in the report today, a lot of these figures are contained within the report, but I thought it would be really helpful for members if we had a little bit of extra detail. So the plan for 2022-23 was approved last year, included a base budget of 39.4 million. And I think it's worth considering that at that time, the planning assumptions were that we would have a 2% pay inflation and that general inflation would be below 4%. And you will recall that the budget was set on the back of the COVID restrictions being lifted, and it was assumed that the COVID impact would reduce and that at that time we were assuming a degree of normality would return. It's also worth noting that traditionally the fire budget is set and approved ahead of the local authority budgets. And the important factor there is it allows time for our figures to be built into the planning assumptions by local authority colleagues. Since that time, the global position has deteriorated markedly with unrest in Ukraine, ongoing supply chain issues, high levels of inflation, increases in interest rates, and an energy crisis. And I think overall the position is very, very challenging. Importantly for the authority, the planning assumption for 2022, that situation has deteriorated. Pay inflation has come in at much higher than the 2% that we budgeted for. Certainly we've managed to settle the local government pay award. That was settled at a flat rate of 1,925, which for us equated to about 6%. And the pay inflation for firefighters is still not yet concluded. What I hope to be able to do today is build on this and provide further insight into those challenges that we're facing. But in overall terms, the initial planning assessment is that the budget increase for 2022-23-24 would be 5.3 million, which builds the base budget up to 44.7. The provision of fire cover, prevention and protection activities spans all of our communities, and therefore it's important to me that you have that visibility of the cost per head of population. The proposed budget of 44.7 million is a cost of £63.59 per head of population. And this is levied across each authority by its population size. And as you will see there, that does represent an increase of 13.5%, which is built up of all of the challenges that we're facing. I think it's worth taking a moment to work through the planning assumptions that we've used. So the existing service delivery model, the priorities identified by the Chief Fire Officer, but worth noting that as those pay awards are still outstanding for firefighters, we've had to make an estimate of how they might settle. So the budget for 23-24 assumes that the current offer of 5% is the final settlement. Members will be aware that firefighters are currently out to ballot on strike action, having rejected that 5%. In addition to that, we've had to make an assessment and assumption for the pay award for 2023-4, and the current working assumption is that 5%, a pay award of 5% for all staff. Our medium-term financial plan last year assumed 2%. We've also included the increase in our energy costs, and that's given us a cost pressure of just under £1 million. And we've worked through the non-pay, and currently we have non-pay of about 13 million, and that's had to be based on best estimate, but those inflationary risks still exist. Worth noting as well that we haven't made any specific provision for our environmental projects. We're still working towards that carbon neutral target of 2030, but what we've had to do is we recognise that all of our procurement now specifically considers the environmental impact. We know that the increase is very significant, and we thought it would be helpful for members to see how that increase has been built up. So you can see the base budget here of 39.4 million, and the first call on our budget is always pay. Over 70% of our spend is pay. So under normal conditions, if the medium-term financial plan had held true, we would be looking at a cost increase of about £500,000. But the impact of both the pay award in 2022-23 and the increase above the medium-term financial plan in 23-24 has increased cost pressure of 1.7 million. As part of the Chief Fire Officer's situational assessment, it was identified that our training provision was currently inadequate. And I think that reflects the complexity of the operational role. And consequently, we've put additional provision in there of 350,000. And that's twofold, is to increase the capacity both within the training department to deliver courses, but it's also to provide additional days for our retained personnel to be able to access the training that's so essential to their role. In common with most organisations now, that operational resilience was tested to the limit during COVID, and we've put an additional 520,000 in the budget. That operational resilience is twofold. It's firstly to build that capacity within our retained personnel to ensure that the availability of fire response is present across North Wales. And it's also recognising that it takes about 18 months to develop a firefighter. The age profile of our whole-time staff means that we're experiencing high levels of retirement, and therefore it is necessary to build that capacity by recruiting at this stage. The corporate resilience and capacity is increasing by £100,000, or is proposed to, and that really recognises the fact that we've got significant challenges both in respect of health and safety, procurement, environmental challenges. Similarly, business fire safety, the changes to the regulations have created a cost pressure of £100,000. You'd be familiar with those regulations changing following the Grenfell disaster. Members will recall from the paper that went to the Full Fire Authority in October that our energy contract was renewed during this year. That's given rise to a cost pressure of £900,000. Similarly, this time last year, the interest rates were at about 1%, and the current rates are about 5.2%. So the interest rate increases this year are of the order of £600,000. In addition, it's necessary to look at the long-term provision of training. Our training capacity within our Dolgellau site is end of life, and therefore we need to look at the training provision. The ambition is high, is to develop a dedicated training centre, and the capital charges proposed for next year relate to the purchase of land. Then the final item relates to inflationary pressures that we're experiencing across all of our pay. So the impact of that is to bring the proposed budget up to £44.7 million. The revenue is only one side of it, and the long-term sustainability of the authority and the service requires that we maintain that investment not only in our land and buildings, but also in our fire appliances. So the capital budget proposal for next year is 6.5 million with a rollover of deferred schemes from this year, bringing a total up to 6.9. The major element of that relates to the command and control system, and that's proposed that we spend 600,000 next year and 500,000 the year after. And that is about mobilising our fire appliances. It's about being able to take the calls, mobilise and ensure that we can respond as necessary. There is an item of £3 million, and that relates to a land purchase for a new training centre. This will be subject to separate approval by the full fire authority, and at this stage it's noting that is a proposal, and you at this point would not be approving it. The fire appliance replacement, we have a programme of replacement. Our fire appliances last for about 15 years, and this is part of a normal replacement programme. Similarly, multi-purpose station vans ensures that we can actually respond not only in relation to the operational incidents, but also prevention and protection work. Specialist vehicles relates to a welfare unit, and that's recognising that our staff very often spend long periods of time on the mountainside during spate conditions, or indeed at industrial fires, and there is no welfare provision. Similarly, you will see that the training tower replacement is included, and that will relate to the replacement of 2 training towers. And then finally, the building works, the minor works of 800,000, and that is very much around maintaining our property base. And then the final slide is that recognition of the contributions that our constituent local authorities make. So as you can see there, the previous contributions are included, making 39.4 million. The population of North Wales is just over 704,000, and therefore the increase. So that increase is broken down across each of the constituent authorities and is based on the population size. So I'm very happy to take any questions on the budget, and I don't know if David wants to say anything ahead of that.
David?
Yeah, Helen.
Can I ask Helen to continue sharing the slides?
Go to slide 5, Helen, please.
It's sometimes easier to refer to the graphics as we speak. Slide 5, I think, was the one. That is the movement year on year. It's also in the report on the programme in part 14 of the report. So everyone has had it since last week. We have also discussed this in a workshop and a previous meeting of the authority in its draft form. And what is clear to me, if you look there at the big numbers between this year and next year's position at the top and the bottom, the big figures are inflation, and that's a fact. The first two, 2.2 million between them, those are about salaries, which is not within our power to influence the pay deals that staff get, either the firefighters or the staff on local authority terms. That increase is national and is something that we have to deal with. That's the enormous figure in the growth. If you go down to the other biggest numbers, the energy costs almost 900,000, 3/4 of the way down, and then the interest rates and the other inflation at the bottom, almost 400,000. We all know that inflation is up and that interest costs are up and energy costs are much higher than they were, fuel costs rather, and we have to set a budget which is balanced with those requirements. If you accept those as facts,
cyfanswm o'r pethau eraill,
the total of the other
sydd
things
yna ar ddisgresiwn,
that are their discretion are priorities that you and the leaders of the service have set as priorities, the training and the resilience. And it's difficult to change any of these. The increase for the local authorities there varies.
If you can go to slide 8, Helen.
If you can go to slide 8, Helen. The variation according to population is a fact as well. The difference between Anglesey and Gwynedd at the top there is because the population of Gwynedd relatively has gone up in the last year, and that is a fact that we are dealing with. And likewise, Flintshire's population has gone up more than the other 5 counties. So that increase is about 13.5%. That's the average increase, but it's more for some than others. And then if you look at things, if you want to look at things again, only some things are discretionary. It would be very difficult to touch those things which are a fact, that is to say inflation. But I think it's fair. You can stop sharing, perhaps, Helen. I think it's fair to say that we have had the email on behalf of the leaders, and there is considerable dissatisfaction amongst them. What has not happened, I suppose, is that we have not had an opportunity to explain to the leaders of the 6 councils why this increase is happening. The fire authority has to make their budget before the local authorities. We make it in the middle of January this time, likewise last year. And if you remember, as councillors, if you were on the council last time, the provision for inflation, every council had a settlement, I suppose the most decent settlement that we'd had for some years last year, and we gave more provision for inflation because of worldwide changes in January and February. We found that the war in Iraq was escalating, and there was immediate effect then on the price of energy and fuel. There was also an effect on inflation in general, and all councils, I think, made additional provision for inflation, having foreseen that inflation. There was some flexibility to do so, but the fire authority did not have that luxury, because as an authority we had made the decision earlier. We had discussed it in December and made it in January before those developments at the beginning of the year. So we now have got that double whammy of pay inflation and other inflation, particularly with energy, which has happened this year and for the following year, and that's why we have that great increase. And a lot of it is inevitable. The leaders have asked us to delay. That's not an option in terms of the decision in January, because we have to set a rate, and the councils then have to put that in the budget of the authorities. We have an earlier deadline than the councils. Looking at the timetable between now and the middle of January, it's not practical for us to have this meeting again and meet the executive committee. So, as you mentioned in the previous item, I think that rather than recommending this, we might have to note it again. Many of the members who have spoken on the previous item, in fact, were referring to this discussion and that increase that we have in the table under paragraph 14. and the increase in the rate that derives from that. So I think, again, with the recommendation here, you can note rather than approve, and note that we shall discuss. I have had a discussion with some of the chief executives yesterday, and on behalf of the leaders, and they do understand that we will never come down to the level of the increase in the grant to the local authorities, but they have been scared by the percentage increase and are asking us to look again at that. And I think it's only fair for us to have that discussion with them and to explain the situation to them. That puts us in a rather difficult position today, where we had hoped to have a recommendation from you. But at the moment, I think, as with the previous item, I think that we can compromise and note rather than recommend, and that we are holding that discussion with some of the chief executives and leaders of the councils, and note what we have before us today. It's possible that that will be adapted somewhat, adjusted somewhat before it's proposed to you again in January. I will leave it there, I think.
Thank you, David. Yeah, I totally agree. You know, we have leaders, cabinet members and strategic directors for finance going through every line of our spend in Conway, not just next year, but also now looking at deferring or halting projects. It's a dire situation. Councillor Mark Young.
Jochen Vow, Chair, and Jochen Vow, David, and this isn't easy, and I just want to confirm I've definitely got my regional hat on, so officers can be absolutely comfortable. But I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear, maybe. And I think we're going to have to work, and it sounds like we are going to need a plan B. And I'm happy to meet again as an audit committee member if needed. And I know the timings are tight, but I don't want to row in January. I want to sort it before then, and that's my role on the authority. I want to understand the figures. Yes, these are ongoing chats with the leaders of the council, but it is our decision at the end. We're going to have to endorse or not endorse. So I would rather us meet before the January meeting. We'll know where we are overall, but I don't think in its present format this is going to get through. So I think we have to start working on the plan B. That's the reality. If that changes, and I doubt it, but I am happy to meet before the January meeting where we have to make this decision. I don't want to go to that meeting without having a chance to have a discussion with officers on what proposals and options we have. The costs are there. Some of them we can't avoid. Some of them could be. So I think members should have that chat and the opportunity for that. Jochen Vow, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mark Young. Councillor Mark Jones.
I've struggled to see how different Plan B would be to the Plan A in a way. I think that David has laid out the facts quite clearly, that there are many of these things beyond our ability to change. So I am not happy seeing the increase that's so big that's going to happen in the contribution from the counties, but personally I can't see that there's going to be a lot of change if we try to come up with a plan B. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mark. Councillor Brian Aspley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm on similar lines to Councillor Mark Young. I would be happy to meet again if that time give us the opportunity to discuss different issues. On the actual contributions expected of the different authorities, it's not my decision of what the final figure will be, but looking at Gwynedd, Conway and Flintshire, each of those three are near enough 12% additional. I mean, and the others, I think Wrexham is the lowest at 11.65, but obviously a lot of money. When we look at inflation figures, and I know it's not science to do this, but if we look at the overall inflation figures from March 2022 through to April 2022 to March 2023, hopefully the average of the increases will not make the figures shown in that on that slide. Of course, we could have another calamity, chaos, whatever, but I'm sure that with goodwill, the council leaders and officers of the fire authority can come to some compromise. It won't be a good news whether we get a compromise, obviously, because David mentioned that things out of our control. Most of what's going on at the moment is out of our control. So, but I would welcome and support Councillor Young's suggestion that we do fit in a meeting specifically on this item. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bryan. Yeah, I would agree. Councillor Gwynfor Owen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to David and Helen for the report, of course. And what is sad in all of this, of course, is that we all agree on everything almost that David is saying, and we see it as sad that we have to look so carefully at this, but we also realize that we are all here representing electors in the north, and we want the best for them. From what is happening here, it just makes one think, of course, going back to 2016 when there was a referendum on Europe and getting rid of following the shambles that there was in Westminster. This is the layer that has caused a lot of the problems that we are facing here today, and perhaps it would be better to get rid of that layer. But having said that, I support what Councillor Young says, and Councillor Apsley. Councillor Apsley mentions, of course, we don't know whether there's going to be another crisis with the group we have in Westminster. I should think there's a good chance of it. But on the other hand, I do feel that perhaps that the best thing to do is, even if it was only for a few days before the meeting of the full fire authority, that we should have another meeting of this panel to discuss the matter in order for us to make a recommendation to the authority itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gwynfor. Yeah, I think it's very important that we have confidence in the decisions that we are making are correct. So I too would like another meeting. Councillor John Brimore Hughes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the report today. I agree with Councillor Mark Jones there that Plan B, well, we are in a situation, as David has said, it's nothing to do with us. But then again, I would appreciate what Councillor Mark Young has said. If we have a committee, even at short notice, I would also like everything to have been sorted out. I am going away in February and until the middle of March, and so I will be pleased if we could have a meeting. And thank you to David and Helen for the report.
Chair, can I just clarify, please?
Yes, sure, Mark.
Yeah. So just clarification. We might not end up with a plan B, but the point is the debate and the discussion and delving into the figures. So I just want to make sure that I'm not saying it's got to be a plan B, but we need to have an open mind when we meet.
Indeed, most definitely. Thank you, Councillor Mark. I did have Councillor Marion.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I absolutely agree with all that's been said. And the provision from Welsh Government, I know, is coming through on Wednesday, but I think that's going to take a while to siphon through and to find exactly, because nothing is ever clear when these announcements are made. So I would even make myself available after eating my turkey on Christmas Day, if need be. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's very important that we do get together and look at this. But I would urge officers to, you know, we need to go through this line by line. Any savings that we can make will help all the constituent councils in North Wales. And I think as an audit committee, it's our duty to do that. We don't have any. Oh, Dawn, you got your hand up? Sorry, yes. I didn't see it hiding in the corner there. Do apologise. Okay.
No, that's fine. Appreciate members' concerns, and I want to thank Helen and David for all their work that they have done around this. I agree that there's still further information that we need to receive. In fact, at the end of today, I have been summoned to a meeting with Welsh Government. I suspect they're not going to tell me that our grants are going to be increased. I think they are going to tell me that they are going to be reduced, and we'll need to factor that into any future budget. So I think certainly the consensus seems to be that the offer of an additional meeting to be able to work through those budget lines would certainly be acceptable to ourselves as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief, for that. Members, so we had the recommendation, but it is proposed that we just note these for now. Would members be happy with that?
Do we need to, just Chair, do we need to commit to the meeting we're all talking about as part of that, or deal with that separately?
Well, I think it's urgent. It's a necessity that we urgently meet as soon as practicable, as they say. So I'd be happy to add that as a recommendation. Just need a proposer. Councillor Marion?
Sorry, Chair. Jumping in at the last minute again, but are we noting the report with the added assumption that we are meeting again and not endorsing anything at all?
Correct. It's not to endorse anything.
No, I know we're noting, but can we just note, because we want to meet it, or put some meat on the bone to noting, because sometimes noting is taken as agreeing.
Okay, so the recommendation is to note the capital revenue budget for 23-24 based on an increase in contributions from constituent authorities of 5.32, which is subject to debate at a further meeting, hopefully in January. To note the key risks and uncertainties identified during the budget and planning process. To note the medium-term financial strategies. To note that it has to be approved by the fire authority by the meeting of the 17th of January. So pretty quickly, we're going to have to be getting together to look at this. And to note in this paper are consistent with the budget setting approach outlined by the fire authority meeting held on the 17th of October 2022, including the associated risk and uncertainties. And 7 is that members induction and planning meeting held on the 13th of June and the 16th of October provided an overview of the service delivery model and associated challenges being faced by the authority. I think that's pretty much sums it up, Councillor Marion. David?
Yeah, just to
just in passing, I note
17th of January.
The 17th of January is the 16th is the meeting.
Okay, That's an error in the paperwork then.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So if members are happy at noting those and the need for an urgent meeting prior to the authorities meeting on the 17th of January, I need a proposer. Councillor Mark Young, are you proposing that?
I am, yes. Thank you, Chair. You can vote.
Okay, and Councillor Brian Espley is seconding. If members are happy with that, could you please show by raising your hands? And are there any to the contrary? And any abstentions? No. Okay, I think that's been approved. Thank you, members. So we'll now move on to item 8, which is the Audit Improvement Plan 2022 and 2023. And this is being presented by Stuart Forshaw.
Thank you, Chair. Audit members, and good morning. The purpose of this report is to confirm to members the outcome of external audit, which was conducted by Audit Wales, of the authority's 22-23 improvement measures as required by the local government measure. A bit of background on this is that all fire and rescue authorities in Wales are required to publish improvement objectives in accordance with the local government measures and the well-being objectives in compliance with the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And for the purpose of the authority's planning processes, these are treated as one and the same. The local government measures require the authority to make arrangements to secure continuous improvement in the exercise of its functions, make arrangements to secure the achievement of its improvement objectives, and make arrangements to exercise its functions so that any performance standards specified by the Welsh ministers are met. The Corporate Plan 21 to 24 sets out the authority's objectives and it was approved by members at meeting of the 14th of March 2022. The Corporate Plan 21 to 24 is subject to audit review by Audit Wales, who is required to confirm whether the authority has discharged its responsibilities in respect of the improvement measures. The audit letter, which is attached as Appendix 1, confirms that Audit Wales has concluded its work on our Corporate Plan 21-24 and is satisfied that the authority has discharged its responsibilities. So the recommendation is that members note the audit letter, which is attached, which confirms that the authority has discharged its responsibilities under the Local Government Measure 2009. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Thanks to you and the team for the excellent work that you've done and the report here from Audit. Members, I'll open it up to the floor. Are there any comments? No. Okay, so I'm looking for a proposer. This needs to be noted. Is there a proposer? Councillor John Brinmore, thank you. And Councillor, we've got another hand up there. Councillor Tina, are you seconding? Yeah, thank you. If members are happy, could you please show by raising your hands? Are there any to the contrary? Any abstentions? Okay. Councillor Mark?
No, I'm endorsing, sorry.
All right, sorry. Okay, thank you. Well, that's been approved by the members that is noted. We'll now move on to the next item, which is, let me find my page, I've lost it. Do apologise. Which is urgent matters, item 9.
They're on to me, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So part 2 is the recommendation of.
So we need a resolution, Chair, just to move into closed session.
Yeah, indeed. Let's move into closed session. Do we have a proposer? Councillor Gwynfor? Councillor Marion? Members are happy to move into closed session. Could you please raise your hands? Thank you. I think that's pretty much done. Okay, so this is the verbal report, is it?